All right, so section 0.2, let me go over factoring differences of two squares. So you're going to be given an expression that looks like this: something squared minus something squared. Okay, that's why we call it a difference. Notice there's a subtraction of two things that are squared. So a difference of two squares. Okay, a squared minus b squared. Now what you're supposed to do is tell yourself, okay, what squared becomes a specific number, what squared becomes another number. So that's usually best shown by example, so I'll do that for you guys. But what's supposed to occur is once you figure that out, this is a pattern that you get to write once you figure out what your a and your b terms are. So there's no x method. I mean, you could use the x method if you want to, but it's really more of a waste of your time. But there is no x method to it. It's just a pattern. Okay, so let me show you how this works with these problems that you guys have. Okay, now I'm going to give you one quick little extra problem. If I started off with x squared minus 9 and I told you factor it, what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, what squared is x squared and what squared is 9? Now usually it's easier to start with the number. Okay, so what number squared is 9? So 3, right? So I square a 3. So 3 squared would be 9. Perfect. What squared gives me x squared? Just x. So here are the keys to your problem, the x and the 3. So all you have to do is write x minus 3, x plus 3, and you're done. You factored it. You just got to figure out those little pieces that go inside of that parenthesis. Once you know those, you're good. Just use the pattern and you factor, okay? It's really quick. So let's look at question number 2. Question number 2, we have v squared minus 4. So what I want you to do is you're going to write a parenthesis squared minus a parenthesis squared. And you get to fill in those parentheses. So what squared is v squared? Just v, right? That's pretty easy. What squared is 4? 2. So remember, the things inside of these parentheses are the keys to your answer. So you're going to use the v and the 2. It's going to look like this: v minus 2, v plus 2. It's always a minus and a plus, or if you want to do plus and a minus, it doesn't matter. But it's always going to be one, then the other. And if you look, your answer is right there. Okay? These are pretty easy problems, but we can make them a little bit more challenging. So let's look at number 4. Okay? So number 4, we got 25, oops, I put 2b. 25b squared minus 4. Okay? Now, I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Actually, before I even get to this step, I noticed that both sides have numbers. Okay? I noticed that both sides have numbers, a 25 and a 4. So the first thing I want to ask myself is there anything I can factor out from a 25 and a 4? So do 4 and 25 have a specific number that can divide both of them? The answer to that would be no. They don't have anything in common. I can't divide by 2. I can't divide by 5. It doesn't go into all of them. So in this case, I can't divide anything out. The next one we will be able to, but in this one we won't. So now let me go ahead and put this parenthesis. So the first thing is you want to double check to make sure that you can't factor something out first. Okay? Now, what squared is 25b squared? So what squared is 25? 5. What squared is b squared? B. So in there, I'm going to put 5b. Because 5b squared is 25b squared. On the other side, what squared is 4? 2. So here we go. I got my keys to my factors right there, 5b and 2. So all I have to do is put 5b minus 2, 5b plus 2, and I'm done. So notice it's still, I'm going to use like air quotes here, it's still easy, right? But the problems that we have to kind of break down get a little bit more complicated. The terms got a little bit more complicated, right? But it's still the same little pattern, minus plus, and you got to figure out what goes in the parentheses. So it's the same type of problem. It's just a little bit more complicated. Okay? And again, question number 1 I didn't do for you guys, but question number 1 will look just like 2. Question number 3 will look very similar to 4. Okay, question number 5 is going to look very similar to 6. Now notice, one really quick thing here for you guys. Look at the problem here. I'm supposed to write a parenthesis squared and say what squared is 20. Is that possible? Something squared equals 20? No, right? Because 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25. We completely skip 20, right? There is no square that gives me 20. So when that happens, you got to say, okay, either the problem is completely messed up and is not factorable, or I can take something out. What number can be factored out from 5x squared minus 20? What number do they have in common, a 5 and a 20? A 5. So let's factor out a 5, okay? So here we go. 5x squared minus 20. I'm going to take out a 5, and what I'm left with is an x squared minus 4. Right? When I factor it out, I get an x squared minus 4. Now, focus only on this part right here, okay? Focus just on x squared minus 4. Something squared minus something squared, because that is a difference of 2 squares, right? X squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 things that can be squared. So what squared is x squared? X. What squared is 4? 2. Okay, now remember this 5 here? Don't forget about it. I'm going to kind of put it in a different color just so you can kind of see it there. Okay, the 5 is going to kind of follow along. Okay, now the x squared minus 2 squared can be factored in a pattern. It's x minus 2, x plus 2, and don't forget about that 5. And this is your answer for number 6. Okay, so this one's just a little bit trickier because it doesn't have squares, but if you factor, you can find them. Okay, now let me just show you number 5. I'm not going to do it, but look at number 5. Okay, 16n squared minus 9. Those do have squares. You can figure out something squared minus something squared for that, right? Number 4. Yeah, you can do that one too. So those are not going to be too bad. Okay, you should be able to get through those without too much of a problem. Okay, so I've done 3 out of the 6 of those problems for you guys. Now let's look at the common terms now. Okay, so 7 through 12, notice the instructions say factor the common factor out of each expression. In other words, they have a number in common or a letter in common. Factor that out. Okay, so the thing about these is just kind of think about it like, what do they have in common, right? So let's look at number 8. So we got 12x cubed plus 18x plus 12. Okay, what number can divide all of those numbers, 12, 18, and the other 12? A 6, right? So a 6 will do it. A 4 only does 12, but a 2 could also do it, but you always want to go bigger, right? The biggest number possible. So we're going to take out a 6, and can I factor out a letter for all of them? No, because 12 at the very end doesn't have one. So I can only factor out a 6. So what I'm going to do is divide all the numbers by 6. So let's see, 12 divided by 6, that's 2x cubed, plus 18x divided by 6, that's 3x, plus 2, and that's it. You're done. So that would be, which one's my answer for that one? C. So notice these are not considered the most difficult ones. Usually common factors are a lot easier than all the other types of factoring because you just got to take out a little piece sometimes and then just rewrite it. Okay? So let's look at number 10. Let's make it a little bit more complicated. So notice they have numbers and they also have letters. All the terms have numbers and letters. So that means I can take out both now. Right? So now I got to think, okay, what number divides 27, 6, and 24? A 3, yeah, a 3 will do that. So let's put 3. And then look at my letters, n to the 4th, n to the 3rd, n squared. How many n's do they have in common? They have 2, right? Because the first one has 4 n's. The second one has 3 n's. The last one has 2 n's. That means they all at least have 2, right? So n squared. And now all I got to do is factor it out. So 27n to the 4th, just to show you right here, if I factor out for this one, 27n to the 4th divided by 3n squared. That's what factoring means, divide out by the thing you're saying. 9n squared, because 27 divided by 3 is 9, and n to the 4th divided by n squared is n to the 2nd. 4 minus 2. You get the powers and you subtract them, right? So 4 minus 2. So that's going to be a 9n squared plus, now look at this part right here, the 6n cubed. So 6n cubed divided by 3n squared. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. N to the 3rd divided by n squared. Remember, to subtract the powers. 3 minus 2, that's a 1. So it's just n to the 1st. So this will be 2n. And then the last part right here, the 24n squared. So 24n squared over 3n squared. So 24 divided by 3, 8. And then look at your powers, 2 minus 2, that's 0, right? So that means that the n disappears. So it's just an 8. So minus an 8. And if you look, your answer is A. Now, I always get people to ask me, do I have to show the work in green? Do I have to do that? I'm only showing this for you if you don't do it in your head. A lot of people do it in their head and they're like, okay, divide this and divide that. Okay, I can do that. But if you don't normally do it in your head, then it's useful for you to get each piece and divide it by whatever you factor. 3n squared, right? Divide each piece by that. And you guys should be able to work it out to find every little piece that you need to reduce by factoring. Okay? You don't have to show the work if you don't want to. Like I said, most people, they do it in their head and they just kind of go through it. But this is how it would look like if you did it piece by piece. Okay? So let me give you guys a chance to get number 12 on your own here, okay? Do number 12 on your own. I'm going to give you about a minute. All right. So what they have in common, 2b, 10b squared, and 16b to the 4th is 2b. That's what they have in common. Okay, so at that point, you can pretty much already guess that it's going to be b, right? Because that's the only one that has a 2b out there. But if I divide 2b by 2b, I get 1, right? Plus 10b squared divided by 2b will be 5b. And then 16b to the 4th divided by 2b will be 8b to the 3rd. And I'll show the work really quick on the side, just in case you're wondering, like, how did I do that? So this equals 1, because everything cancels. 10b squared over 2b will be 5. Notice the power is 2 minus 1, so that's a 1 left, so that's a b. And then 16b to the 4th over 2b, that's 8b to the 3rd, because 4 minus 1 is 3. So that's how I get all three terms inside that parenthesis. So yeah, the answer would be B. Okay, so right now I'm going to make sure you have your assignment on CUDA Works. I know we only have 42, 8 minutes left, so I can't guarantee you're going to finish your homework, but you might be able to put some damage into it, so we'll see.